The children in the lift must mind those doors, mind those doors, mind those doors. Little fingers on the lift must mind those doors all day long.
It was tough though, because I literally had to prove that I wasn't a spy initially.
He looked at me up and down, and I sort of bowed, moving out of his way.
I was actually diagnosed with fibromyalgia and a brain tumour within the same week.
Steve, you're actually the first person I've had on the channel, so
wow.
you're breaking us in. So obviously this is Steve Smith, and he's got his own business now, Coaching by Steve Smith, and he's luckily he's agreed for to be on the channel. The Lift Industry Mental Health Charter channel is obviously something we're trying to develop at the moment. It's going to be on various different formats. It's going to be on a Teams format. I've got a one-to-one format where there's a one-game challenge of pool, and we have a discussion around a game of pool. I've got some of that coming up as well in coming episodes. And during the discussion, we'll probably talk about the charter as well and what we're trying to do with it. What we will try and do, we'll probably try and steer away, because we've both been in the industry, quite some years. So we'll probably try and steer away from maybe, I don't know, people's names, or maybe, we don't want to say anything derogatory against any companies that, we may have been part of or anything like that. I don't mind mentioning the company names, but we'll try and keep it clean. So
yeah. But I think, are we okay to mention people that have been influential in our bit, in our lives? Because there are a few, just if they come up, because there are some real key people that have kind of, helped me get through, and made it a lot easier, to be honest.
I think any talk about anyone in a positive way is for me, I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite comfortable with that, and I think it's the right thing to do, to give them the recognition that they deserve, because they've helped you. Where did you start in the industry then, Steve? How did the industry find you?
Right, so it was a bit of a culture shock. But I was living in Bournemouth at the time, and I was actually a carer. I was 30, and an opportunity came. In fact, no, I was 29 when the opportunity came up, and I was told that I was going to be there's an opportunity for a trainee for Otis in the Nottingham area. So I moved from Bournemouth to Nottingham. Luckily, I had family around there, so it wasn't too bad. The job fell through, and then they advised me to keep the powder dry, do what I can. And then 18 months later, I actually started, but I had to move again because it was in Birmingham. So, so I moved to Nottingham, then moved to Birmingham, and it was part of the Birmingham housing. And the first name drop goes to Les Blaw, who's been in the industry quite a long time, but he gave me my first opportunity within the lift industry. And because I was a bit older, I think it was tough, because I've got a relative who's quite high up, so they all thought I was a spy when I first went in.
Steve the spy, eh?
Steve the spy, yeah. We were working on the old Express contract, and they were all long in the tooth. Do you know what I mean? They were all the old boys, and it was good fun. I had to prove my worth. My first proper job was with a fantastic engineer, Nick Betts. You probably know Nick. He's an amazing engineer. He was the technician who was coming in and making sure I wasn't going to blow anything up. But I pretty much rewired that as one of my first jobs, and it was it was a kind of an introduction into repairs first, and then that went on to working at the Blackpool Tower through service.
Right.
What
was that like? Did you get to see anything good at the Blackpool Tower?
Yeah, saw quite a bit. Yeah, saw quite a few famous people. Yeah, I met Tim Burton, and he asked me if I knew Brett, who's a lift engineer in New York, and I
Really?
said let him down and say no. He worked for Otis. I was
Well,
like, yeah.
well, at least he spoke to you.
He
You
did.
know, I met Pavarotti some years ago, and he didn't really speak to me much. No, he looked at me up and down, and I sort of bowed, moving out of his way. So yeah, he.
You weren't singing Barcelona to him or anything, were you?
No. We was actually there to keep the lift running. Unfortunately, it wasn't running, and he decided to use the stairs. So he wasn't best pleased.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Oh, and I met Abby Clancy as well when she was doing Strictly, and that was I'm really proud of working at the Tower actually, because it's such an iconic it's an iconic structure. And it's like working at the Tower is like not working on any lift. Obviously, there are going to be other lifts that are really unique as well, like power stations and things. But like that lift was so unique because of the situation, because of the environment. I had a both lifts stopped at the top floor, and we had wheelchairs and everything. And I was like, well, what are you going to do? You've got to. And unfortunately, my team leader, who knew everything about them, it wasn't too far away, and he was on hand because both lifts went off at the same time. I had wheelchair, I had disabled, like it was full of disabled guests, and it was just like the pressure, and then you've got the see. This was one of the first moments where I realised where I actually felt so overwhelmed, actually, that I almost felt it could potentially have been a dangerous situation if it hadn't have been dealt with differently. And my team leader at the time, I basically spoke to him and I said, look, they're on the radio every 5 minutes. I'm in front of the control panels. I'm trying to work safely, but they're literally radioing me every, when the lift's working. I had people trying to get into the motor room because the motor rooms are at the top of the tower, saying, oh, we need to get down. They were starting to panic. And it was really the first moment where I just thought, wow, this is a lot. This is too much. I don't necessarily think it's the same pressure and stress as when you get into, I went from an engineer to sales to management, and they're all completely different pressures.
Yeah.
I think good engineers, put pressure on themselves more than they might get pressure on by other people.
I think you're right.
Especially if they're managed right. If they're under a good manager, but I think because they're good engineers, they want to fix it, right? They don't want to keep going to the same lift, or they don't want to go to a lift and then and this is the thing, you don't want to go to a lift, right? Need help, have to call one of the techs. Like I used to call if ever a tech came out, I'd be there for the first 10 minutes. I'd be like that, going, please don't find some. I've turned like everything. I've checked everything, right? I've checked the basics, right? Because you don't want a tech to turn up and go,
yeah,
it's that, mate.
Yeah, it's quite
obvious. Yeah, you haven't got your safeties, mate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's the last thing. That's the last thing you need. I'd moved around a couple of companies, and I ended up at Concept, and I was enjoying it. It was tough. I was a repair manager, repair manager, and it was tough. But it was a smaller company, and that it's a different. They have to have a different mentality. They're not a tiny company, but it's obviously compared to Otis and everything, it's a small company. But things were going all right. It was tough though. It was a tough role. But the thing that did me was I started to get ill, and I Well, actually, before I went there, I had actually returned back to Otis, and that was a very high pressure job. And I'm not sure whether the pressure of that job became kind of went with me and to concept, because I think it was about, in fact, it was just as lockdown happened. I literally started the same week as lockdown. So it was very weird, starting at a company. They furloughed a couple of engineers, and it was just like, wow.
Is this concept when you
Yeah,
started? Right. Okay.
yeah, literally, I started a concept at the same week, and obviously they had to make a decision, as most companies did, furlough. So, it was difficult to get engineers in to do certain jobs because the buildings were closed. We did a lot of the councils and those type of buildings and schools and things. So it was a steep learning curve, really, into it. I was actually repair manager at Otis, so I'd already done the role. So that wasn't too bad, but it was a time where it was tough for everybody, obviously. And I started, I don't know, I started to feel quite lethargic. I started to be quite forgetful. Wasn't sure really what was going on. I kind of would forget silly things. I would book somebody in, speak to my colleague, and then literally about 20 minutes later, I'd go to book them in, and then ask her the same question, and she'd be like looking at me going, "You've already done that." And I was like, "Oh," and I just didn't think much of it really. And then it was during the summer, and I went out to see one of the engineers, and he looked at me and he was like, "Are you okay? Because you don't look okay." And I was like, "I'm not sure. I don't feel right. I feel kind of all over the place." And he drove my car back to the office, and as I was stood in the corridor bit, I just collapsed, and I actually went into a table, damaged my shoulder. Actually ended up dislocating my shoulder. Collapsed. Wasn't sure what was going on at all, and then it was a bit of a tough kind of couple of months because I was having tests. Nobody really knew what was going on. They said I had vertigo at first, and then lots of different things. And it turned out that I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Well, I was actually diagnosed with fibromyalgia and a brain tumor within the same week. And the fibromyalgia, they said, would be the brain fog. And I started to lose strength in my arm. I couldn't lift things up. It was just getting really difficult for me to do anything, even to get out of bed, And then I found that I had this brain tumor and stuff, and I was like, okay.
How was that at home? Because obviously you couldn't work at this point. And did you have like a partner and children and stuff like that?
Yeah.
How was that at home?
Well, my partner wasn't working, so I just carried on working. I had time off when it was bad, but I carried on. I had to carry on working. I started to look inside myself, and I realised that quitting wasn't an option. So I then had to discover, well, what are the options then? What do I need to do? And it's a bit of timing really. And I believe in the universe and how things work and everything. And I was kind of introduced to like some techniques and meditation and breath work and things like that. So I actually started a routine, a morning routine, a night routine. I changed my diet. I was drinking filtered water. I started to implement things that made me feel a bit more human.
And was this recommended by a doctor? Had you been operated on at this point?
No, no, because it was well. Firstly, they told me it finally said it was benign. It took them a while to say, but it's in a really difficult position. So it's actually still there. But so it's right near where my cerebellum is. So where your spinal cord comes up, you've got your cerebellum, and then it's kind of in like a little cavity there. Now, what they've said is, and I'm still under neurosurgery now, and I see them every 6 months. So it's not obviously it's being monitored, but it's not major. I would know if it starts doing something. Because of where it is, I would start losing motor skills. I would start losing kind of the ability to kind of communicate. So if that starts to happen, then my partner knows to get me straight there and explain, because its chances are the tumour's doing something. But on the flip side of that, it was too risky for them to get out because of where it was in between my spinal cord and your cerebellum. Is not something that they want to be tampering with.
You've seen this, and then you've decided that actually you've got enough knowledge now to really give back and start helping other people.
Yeah, because my health was great. It was just that it was the whole. It was kind of my focus had gone as well from it all, because I'd kind of admitted to myself finally that enough was enough, and then I'd started looking in, and that's where I did my accreditation with coaching.
Okay.
But I did it kind of alongside, so I had already started it when I was doing like almost like night school. Because I knew that eventually Cotswold would have to let me go, just because for the sake of their company.
You knew the situation.
100%, and I totally respected it. So what
did you train in then? What were the courses that you've done to enable you to get to the point you are?
So coaching is still kind of unregulated. So there isn't actually a recognized body yet. There are some coming in. There are for like business coaching and stuff like that. Some of the higher end executive coaching there are. But with kind of like the life coaching, there really isn't. So I just wanted to get. It wasn't really the qualification that I needed, but I just wanted to kind of reaffirm in myself that I could do it. So I did in holistic therapies, so kind of a little bit of Reiki, but it's kind of like meditation, breath work, kind of the mindfulness stuff. And I kind of adapted because it's not necessarily like, oh, you have to have all these qualifications. What I've done is I've basically learned from different aspects of different people and molded it all into, like, I'm doing a breathwork qualification now, where it's like Soma breathwork, so it's through movement and things like that. So it's meditation but through movement, and it's very, very powerful, especially for anxiety, for people who kind of it's powerful for certain conditions where people feel kind of stressed quite easily. If you easily get wound up, for example, very, very good, very clear. It gives you a lot of clarity.
How does that work then exactly? What's the concept of it? What exactly do you do?
So
besides breathing?
Besides breathing, because funny enough, we don't breathe, right? We don't actually breathe how we are capable of breathing. We bring in enough oxygen to keep us alive. That's it. Okay, because if you notice, when you take in too much oxygen, you get lightheaded. Right? So you don't get used to the oxygen that's coming in. And I don't know if you notice as well, is when you get into like a panic, you've heard of fight or flight, fight or flight mode. Well, that's the deep inhale. That's that deep. And then what normally happens to anyone that's been untrained, or the almost natural thing to do is almost like hold it in, right? And it's become short of breath.
Okay.
Right? Well, the actual science is that actually, if you teach somebody or advise somebody that actually when you do that deep inhale, if you were to just hold it and just notice the calmness and then control the exhale, that's what relaxation is. So that's what relaxes your body. Now, the fight or flight, because how the mind works, it's trying to keep us safe. So it actually just does the first part. But if we can teach people how to control the breath, what meditation and all these things are aimed to do, right? Meditation means to know thyself, right? To become familiar with. And the main problem that people have is that they are either caught up in the past or worrying about the future.
Yeah.
But actually, what that does is that gives them a false reality, right? So if you're defined by your past and you don't realize it, but actually if you think, oh God, reality is crap, but actually it's not necessarily the true reality, because you almost reliving the past, which has happened, so it's always going to happen. You're creating the same emotions. You're getting wound up by things that have happened in the past, right?
Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah, and then I think we all have, mate. And then what we tend to do then is to escape this bit, because we think this reality is rubbish. We then look for something in the future, but not actually taking any action. Like, you don't actually put plans in place, or when this happens, I'll be happy, or when that happens, I'll be happy, or when I meet that person, I'll be happy, or when I get this job, I'll be happy. It's always when that happens, I will be. But the key, and this is why meditation and all these things are so powerful, is actually the key is now, right? Nothing is ever created in the past or in the future. It's only created now. So breathing is what brings you now. So if you concentrate on your breath, it's the thing that links you to actually right in this moment.
It brings you in the present, as they say. It's the present moment.
It brings you present. Yeah, and this is where meditation and breath work and everything, this is why it is so powerful, because what it does, it actually it removes you from worrying about the past temporarily. You have to do a lot for it to be like other things, but temporarily it brings you right into now, and it gives you the opportunity to do something about your life right now. But with some people, because they're not aware, it's awareness is like the key word at the moment, right? Because if people aren't aware that that's what to do, and this is what I'm trying to bring awareness to people, is that if you just concentrate on your breath and focus on your breath, we can't actually multitask. We might think we can, but we can't. So if your mind is racing and you've got all these negative thoughts in your head, anyone listening now, just try this, right? If you've got racing thoughts in your head, count your breath in your mind. So breathe in and count maybe to 4, and then hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold that for 4, and then keep counting. And what you'll notice is that you can't think those negative thoughts and count at the same time. One of the things stops.
So interesting thing. Interesting you to say that, right? So I can totally relate to that. But I think when I was probably struggling from a mental health perspective, and that was with sleep. Sleep had a big impact on me. I spoke about sleep before. So I say when I was struggling from a mental health perspective, it's from a sleep perspective. I also found that because I had a lack of sleep, my attention span was really poor.
Yeah.
And I tried to do what you said there, which is actually, focus on something in the room or focus on breathing. I tried to do it, but because my attention span was so poor, I got bored of it after 30 seconds. So how do you keep that motivation? How do you keep that focus to continue to do it? Because I was in that, I had a lack of sleep and I wasn't in a very good way. I couldn't focus on doing that, but I sort of had to.
It's a bit of chicken and egg, right? Because people say the morning is the most important part because it's the start of the day. But if you've had poor sleep, then your morning's going to have a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the ideas, and this is what I one of the things that I really coach as well. So if you're going to start anything, if you're going to start change, or you're going to start anything, always start when you feel good. Never start when you're having a bad day, because the chances are you won't stick at something, right? Because if you think of it as a hill, right, and this is your normal day. That's a bad day. That's a great day. If you start when you're feeling all right, it's progress, right? It's progress because you're going above normal. If you start down here, you've got some to go before feeling normal. You know, you've got a bit of a hill to climb, and psychologically, you won't have the patience, you won't have the focus, you won't have anything. But even people who are depressed have okay days, right? They have days where they feel all right. And I always say, if you're going to start something new, start it when you're feeling all right, because psychologically it'll give you a boost straight away. Instead of you just trying to get back to a little bit of normal, it will actually give you that kick right first.
Okay.
Now, there were lots of different things that and it's quite funny really, but like focus, and you don't have to necessarily just do your breath. A real good one is brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. Doing things.
Never tried it, but I will now tomorrow.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what.
Tonight, sorry.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, you won't be able to do it on autopilot because your hand will be all over the place.
I'm just going to list your top 3 techniques.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are the most effective? You can't have a cure for everything because people react differently to different things.
Yeah, of course.
What do you like to gravitate towards as a technique, or top 3?
So I would say breath work is number one. Breath work, 100% number one, because like I say, it's the one thing that can calm you down. It's the one thing that can relax you. It's the one thing can that get you up for something. If there's a breathing technique to get you excited. There's a breathing technique to calm you down. So breath work, 100%. And
this is to declutter your mind, to hopefully get rid of some of that fuzziness, if you want to call it.
I think breath work goes hand in hand. So I would say breath work's not even one of the top 3. Breath work, to learn breath work, I think it should be taught in schools.
Okay.
100%, especially in behaviour schools, in schools where people have ADHD and things like that, because to be able to learn the different skills or the different techniques of breath puts you, all of a sudden it starts to put you in control of what's going on, right? Even if it's just briefly, it just removes you from that anxiety, even if it's just for a split second, right? Just because you're in control. And there are so many breath techniques. Meditation is definitely there, but I'm trying to change how people think of meditation, because it's not looking like Russell Brand floating on a cloud with beads in your hair. You can do that if you want to, right? But that's not what meditation is. If you like being in the garden, if you do model making, if you read, anything where you are where you're concentrating and you're being kind of present and you are peaceful and you have that kind of that inner, you're kind of comfortable where you are, right? If you have that anybody has that hobby or something, that's meditation. What you need to do though is be aware that that's what you're doing. So instead of just thinking, oh yeah, I'm in the garden, be aware of nature, be aware of what actually the goodness you're doing for yourself, even coming down to, thank yourself, be good, be kind to yourself, because it's just you, right? But be kind to yourself, that actually you're giving yourself a break and you're giving yourself time in something that's really peaceful. So almost don't turn it from a hobby, just think of it more deeply and think of it that actually this is so good for me. That's your meditation.
So you're saying obviously breath work, that's relatively simple process to do and thing to do. Being maybe, when you say meditation, sort of
it's mindfulness, really.
Being in the present of what you're doing goes back to being in the present again, in a way. You're saying, like you said, when you go out, be mindful of the birds in the trees, and you know, actually listen to what's going on.
Yeah.
What else would you?
I would 100% say, and this is strange, right? Because until you do it, you won't realize how much of a positive impact it has on your life, and that's the gratitude.
Right.
Writing a gratitude journal. Whether it's a notepad by the side of your bed. My son's got a notepad. He does his. He's 7, but he's doing it. He loves it. It's really good, because what it does, and try to be a bit deeper. But initially you'll go, it's your family, it's your health, and all this, right? But think slightly deeper than that. When was the last time that you saw, I don't know, a beautiful bird or a flower, or you heard your favorite music, or you tasted your favorite food, and actually stopped and thought, I'm so grateful that I can taste that, or I'm so grateful that I can hear that, or I can see that. You know, that's the deep gratitude, right? That is where you shift into this real positive. That failed miserably. We can edit it. It's where you shift.
Oh, leave it in.
Leave it in. Yeah, it's just snuck in there. I didn't want to look, but yeah, you basically it's about shifting things, Mark. Like the whole wellness and kind of well-being and mindfulness and all of this is just about shifting how you look at how you look at things.
Some people are very positive. They're naturally very positive. They're very happy. You could say they're less likely to have a mental health issue. I don't know. But do you think the issues are developed, or do you think they're there, but certain things trigger them? What's your thoughts?
It's quite broad. I there's such a spectrum, isn't there, of mental health. But I think it's a little bit of a mix. I do think that there is a chemical imbalance with people who suffer from these things like stress and things, who have less of a tolerance.
It's what antidepressants are for, aren't they? It's what antidepressants do. They change that imbalance slightly.
Yeah. So to kind of like certain people have a different tolerance for pressure and things. I do think that mental health issues can develop from stress. Obviously, scientists will only tell you that it could be like a build up, like a and then you need a trigger to really suffer. But yeah, I think that society and society and diet and kind of the pressures of life and all these things, I think have a significant part of it too.
Obviously, it's been fantastic you've joined us, and I'd really be good to hear from you again at some point. And like I said, we'll probably do it in maybe of a group setting. And we're really pleased that you're part of the charter, and hopefully moving on, progressing forward as the year goes on. There'll be people who are part of the charter that want to use Mind Coaching by Steve Smith. And I'm really hopeful, and like I said, it's great that you're part of it.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, mate, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to, to share it with, there are going to be many people that have known me from the lift industry.
Yeah.
And it's nice to just to share awareness, and that's like what you said earlier, right? If we can just help one person, that's the main thing. And
that's the main thing, and raising awareness, like you said.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And just to let the people know that there are tools out there for them to, and then we can, just take it from there. But yeah, I really look forward to working with your mate. Keep up the good work. And I'm going to say, you know, what I mentioned the other day, don't take all this on yourself as well, because nobody wants you to be overwhelmed. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like I was designing a course for overwhelmed dads, and designing it made me overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
And it was just like, oh my God, I've just become the person I'm trying to help here.
No, I
and
will
it's so
definitely.
easy, you know. It's so easy when you get involved with something to just take too much on, and you know that I'm here, and you know everyone's here, and we're all in it together.
I've come to recognise that you can't take on everything yourself, and there's quite a few people involved now, and hopefully I'll be speaking to enough people along the way, and speaking to people actually is quite therapeutic in itself. So
Absolutely.
yeah, no, you're right though. Don't get overwhelmed by something that you're trying to do. You know, you're trying to do something good and you become overwhelmed by it. So I'll noted.
Yeah, but if you do need a coach, I know a good one. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
No, it's been great, Steve. So thanks very much for joining us, and
No, great
I
stuff.
will catch up with you soon.
Yeah, all the best, mate. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.